Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast.
Hello and welcome on board flight episode 24 of Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast. This is your captain and host speaking, Geoff at Geoff Willis, and each week I'll be taking flight to talk Fantasy Premier League football. You can find the show on a whole host of podcast services, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play and a whole lot more. Just search Captain's Pick. On today's show, I'll give a quick review of my game week 23, talk transfers, double game week 25 plans and my captain's pick. And I'll finish off with a quick preview of game week 24. But first, a quick shout out to the half-season Community League, which started scoring back in game week 20. And this was the league I set up to raise some money and awareness for Cancer Research UK. If you'd like to donate any money, that would be fantastic. Just head over to the Just Giving link in the description of this podcast or in my bio on my Twitter account at Captain's Pick Pod. The league code to enter, so you can still enter and your scoring backdate from game week 20. The league code is 1010060-1308938. I'll be keeping it open for another few weeks and then I'll be closing the league off, and it'll just be everyone in the league participating to win that £50 Amazon voucher to whoever comes in first place. So looking at the league, we've got about 82 people in the leagues. Fantastic for everyone for joining and everyone for donating. The top 10 is pretty tight actually. It's about 22 points, just covering the top 10. So all to play for still. So many weeks to go. But the shout out to the top 10. So from 10 to 4, in at 10 is Andy Gray on 257 points. Then it's Sastrawan Gravmag, Gareth McGrath, Lewis King, Diva Gus, Good Sadanan, Halancia Saputra, and the top 3, Faizam Kazmi, 268 points, Divine Shikari, 272, and then top for the second week running is Ryan Lee with his team, 50 Shades of O'Shea, with 279 points. So well done to Ryan Lee, good consistency there. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Peter Kiyama with his team Thunder Warrior, who was the top scoring manager of this game week with 85 points. Peter used triple captain actually on Salah, so got a big 45 points there. So great game week for him. So would have thought he's about 20th in the league. He'll be pushing to get into that top 10, I'm sure, in the weeks to come. So that's the half-season Community League. Remember, all the links to the league code and to the charity page are in the description of this podcast, and they'll be on my Twitter bio as well. Okay, so looking back then at my game week 23, I scored 60 points. I didn't take any hits, made 2 transfers. I had 3 transfers. And the average points was 53, so a little bit over the average, which left me on overall points of 1,361. It was a red arrow, unfortunately, a drop of about 14k, so I went from 130 to my overall rank now of 144k. So it was about a par score. I always like to try and score 60 points or above, so I hit my sort of average target for the week, which was good. But in a week where there were some really good scores, I definitely suffered not having any Man City assets in this game week. And so, yeah, 60 points. I had a lot of blanks. And if just 1 or 2 of them had covered a few more points, scored a few more points, definitely would have seen me with a green arrow. And so how my team broke down was basically I had Salah captain, so he returned me 30 points. My 2 free transfers, worked out superbly. So happy with that. Pogba and Rashford both coming in, both scoring 8 points. Can't complain at all. Fantastic. And they look like certainties to stay in this team, certainly for the next 4 or 5 game weeks where United have got some really decent fixtures. My only other points really coming from Robertson, who got 5 points. He got an assist in that Liverpool game. And then everyone else blanked. So Fabianski 2 points, Alonso 1 point, Doherty 1 point. Digne got a -1 after an own goal, so not great from him. Felipe Anderson 2 points, Richarlison 2 points, and Hazard 2 points. And obviously I didn't have any, also had blanks on my bench, so I didn't miss out on any points there. And if you'd listened to the pod last few weeks, and if you've been following me on the Captain's Pick pod Twitter account, you'll know that Alonso, Hazard, Felipe Anderson and Richarlison have all been skating on thin ice for the last few weeks. I think they've actually probably dropped through the ice and now they're floundering in icy cold water. Because certainly Richarlison and Felipe Anderson have blanked 4 weeks in a row now. Kept patience with them because I always thought there was a big score coming, and that may just not come now. So definitely looking at those options to see if I could manoeuvre anything to get those out. And Alonso and Hazard, Chelsea have bought Higuain now, so hopefully that brings Hazard into the game. Alonso could well be dropped. Emerson Palmieri, the other left back at Chelsea, played in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Alonso played in the FA Cup match. So does that mean Alonso's going to get dropped for the league game? We shall see. But all those players are on my radar to possibly ship out. Quite a lot of different permeations coming up now in the next few weeks, certainly with the double game week in 25. So those are definitely on my radar, and we'll have a little look going forward what I might be doing with those players. But as I say, not a bad game week 23. Could have been a little bit better, would have been nice. Saw mostly red arrows in the overall rank and most of my mini leagues, but the two main ones, my friends and family 2 leagues, I'm still top of both of those leagues, so can't complain. They're the main 2 leagues I'm looking at, and of course that target of getting inside the top 100k by the end of the season is still within reach. So let's have a little look to talk transfers then for game week 24. And recording this Monday afternoon, so I wanted to wait to record this podcast until we'd had the Carabao Cup semi-finals and the majority of FA Cup games to just give us a little bit more of an indication of how the next two days and Premier League games might play out. So the game week deadline for 24 is tomorrow, Tuesday night at 6:45. I'll remind you again at the end of the pod. So my provisional plan going into this game week was to roll my transfer, and so I'd have 2 free transfers going into game week 25. And with the announcement that there will now be a double game week in 25, which I'll go into a minute, I would have thought that concretes my decision to not make any transfers and to roll my transfer and go into that game week with more options of bringing in players from those double game week teams. Of course, I've got fires to put out in my current team. So Felipe Anderson, Hazard, Richarlison, Alonso, all of them could easily be shipped out. But I just don't think anyone who I may bring in, I'm not sure they could potentially outscore them. But I think all these players are going to play with the possible doubt of Alonso. But I think this is where my Ings transfer from over sort of Christmas time comes into play. So I brought him in really as a good option as my first sub. And so if, for example, Alonso doesn't play, I'm pretty happy with Ings coming off my bench. Southampton have got Crystal Palace at home. And that's sort of the the key reason for having him at that sort of first sub position. I know he's going to play, he's got a chance to do well. So I just think it might be a little bit of a waste of a transfer to try and bring anyone in, especially now the circumstances have changed. So unless we hear anything from the press conferences today, anyone picks up a last minute injury that we find out about, I think I will be rolling the transfer and going into game week 25 with 2 transfers and maybe a chance to play a mini wildcard, potentially take a hit maybe, and then I could do 3 transfers. More on that in a second, but I'll go into my captain's pick. There's a few options, but my main option, and I think is pretty much guaranteed, will be captaining Salah at home to Leicester. Leicester haven't been great defensively recently. Salah's been amazing, so consistent. I think most of the FPL managers out there will be captaining Salah if they have him. Other options, potentially Hazard away at Bournemouth. He has a good record away there and against Bournemouth, and Bournemouth aren't great defensively, but with Higuain starting as well, could become a more of an attractive option, but there's sort of no chance I'm risking it on Hazard at this stage, and I just think Salah's a far better option. But if you don't have Salah, then you could well contemplate Hazard. And Man United have got a good fixture, so Burnley at home, so I'd say that brings Pogba and Rashford into the discussion. I think both will play and both will do well. Burnley not great defensively, and Man United have just the in-form team in the Premiership at the moment. But again, if you've got Salah as well as those players, I just don't think you can look past Salah. If Salah goes crazy and scores a ton of goals and you haven't captained him and he's in your side, you're really looking at whoever you do captain to try and make up those points. I'm just not sure it's worth it. I just think at this moment certainly the safe players to go with captaining Salah, and certainly that's what I think I'll be doing. So a little chat on the Game Week 25 double. So that was announced yesterday. So in Game Week 25, Man City have a double game week, so they'll be playing Arsenal at home and Everton away. And Everton also have a double game week, so they'll be playing Wolves at home and then City at home. So this is sort of the major reason really now for definitely rolling my transfer. I've got to come up with a few plans to look at to really bring in City players. I'm not sure I can go into that double game week with no City players, which is what I currently have, none of them. I've obviously got 2 Everton players, so that covers that team and those fixtures. I don't want any more than that. I'm quite happy with those 2. Obviously, one of the games is against City, so I'm not sure they're going to score many points in that game, but happy with my 2 Everton players, not a problem there. But it's how to bring in City players. Now, that obviously the caveat to all this is that both Everton and City have blank game week in game week 27. So that's the Carabao Cup final, City versus Chelsea. And so I'll have, if I bring any City players in, they won't have a game that game week, nor will my Everton players, and coincidentally, nor will my Chelsea players either, which I have 2. So I've got to be really careful here in terms of planning the next few weeks. So my initial plan at this stage, again, it's just planning. We'll see who plays in the next couple of games, see if there's any injuries, see if we can maybe guess some of the rotation, although I know that is hard with Pep when playing the Pep roulette. But my initial thoughts were to be transfer out Felipe Anderson and bring in Sane. So I'm covering that City attacking threat. He may not play both games, but I feel like they really need to try and win both of those to put on pressure on Liverpool. So I think he's got a decent chance of playing both. And I think he's been in good form. Of course, there's always risk of rotation Mendy obviously did come back, but we're hearing now he's got some swelling in that knee injury, so he may be out for the next week or so. So that could well lead to Sane playing both matches. And but to do that, so I've already got 1.8 million in the bank, but I would need to drop Alonso, and few options I could bring in for him. Chelsea in that game playing Huddersfield at home, so it would be annoying slightly to take him out in a good fixture, but he may be dropped. We'll have to obviously see midweek. He may not play that game, so obviously options to bring in at the price range. I could only probably bring in John Stones from City, and that would give me 2 Everton and 2 City for the double game week. Again, Stones just as likely to be rotated, and City defence not being at its best recently, so I'm not sure if that would be a waste. And of course then leading into game week 27, I'd have 1 Chelsea, 2 City and 2 Everton, all of which don't have a game in 27, so I'd have to transfer out at least 2 of those and bench the rest, but it's getting into some dodgy territory there. So my other option, and this was one of my plans from a game week 27-28, was to bring in a Leicester defender, Pereira, who's been in decent form this season. Leicester a bit up and down, but he brings a lot of attacking threat, and they've got an amazing fixture on from game week 27 onwards. The problem is if I made that transfer for game week 25, bring him in for Alonso, their 3 fixtures from 25-26 are not great at all. It's all against top 6 sides, so I'd be bringing him in with dodgy games, but I do also have the coverage of Danny Ings, who Southampton have got good games, so I could well bench Pereira and play Ings instead. And so that's sort of my initial thoughts. But of course, the good thing about Pereira is that he plays in 27, so I wouldn't have to transfer him back out again. So it is quite a tricky one. There's a lot of permutations, and we will definitely have to see how the next couple of days go with the Premier League games on Tuesday and Wednesday, to see if there's any injury news or anything like that. That's my initial plan, but things can turn around so quickly. But it's definitely one to start considering at the moment. I would suggest, if you can, to roll the transfer this week, and that gives you the most options as possible going into that game week 25. But of course, before loading up totally on Everton City, bear in mind that they both blank game week 27, so you'll have to either bench them or transfer them back out again. I definitely feel like I need City coverage, and I think Sane could well be the best option. It'd be nice to have Sterling as well, but I just, without then taking hits, I just don't think that'd be possible. And so that's my sort of situation, my plans and my dilemma at this stage. But that's certainly what I'm looking to for the double in game week 25. More on that on the pod. I'll try and pod again for this weekend's fixtures, and then I'll be able to let you know what I am definitely going to be doing for that double game week 25 and my plans for the next few weeks after that. There is an outside chance Chelsea may go into that double game week 25, but highly unlikely, as Brighton would be scheduled to play their FA Cup replay in that game week, in that double game week space. So unless that got rescheduled, I would have thought that would at latest probably have to be announced tonight. The FA Cup draw is tonight, so keep an eye out for that. Highly unlikely, but of course, if that were to happen, that again would certainly change plans around, because that would mean I'd have 2 Chelsea players as well. So, but keep an eye out for that, and obviously on Twitter as well. Certainly, if you're on Twitter, follow Ben Crenlin at Ben Crenlin Twitter account. He's great with information all about the double game weeks, the blanks, So keeping up to date, definitely check out Ben Crenlin on Twitter. And going into then a quick preview of game week 24. My squad heading into this, I'm playing a 4-5-1, so I'll have Fabianski in goal, who West Ham are playing Wolves away. Wolves, neither team have been that great defensively. Could see there being plenty of goals in this game, but there's always save points with Fabianski, so just going to probably keep with him for the rest of the season, or certainly until I potentially wildcard around the double game weeks around 31 to 35, but for the moment he is my keeper. And then my back four, Robertson, Liverpool got Leicester at home, could see clean sheet and attacking points there. Alonso, if he plays, I could see again clean sheet attacking points for Chelsea, although Bournemouth pretty decent going forward, but we'll just have to see. He may get dropped, but we'll have to keep our eyes open for that. Doherty at home to West Ham. He scored the last minute equaliser in the FA Cup. He was benched last week, but I would have thought he would definitely start, and he's definitely got potential to score attacking points. And then Lucas Digne, Everton have got Huddersfield away. Huddersfield obviously just switched managers recently. I'd like to think Everton would do well in that match, but their form is so up and down at the moment. And with Digne, you never know, you might get a -1 or 15 points. So hopefully it's the latter. But I could see there's definitely potential of points there. My midfield, so again playing with a power 5 in midfield. Salah, Liverpool, Leicester at home. Looking for big points from him. Pretty certain he's my captain going into that game. And also Pogba, Man United, Burnley at home, expecting big things from him also. And then it's my sort of troubled three midfielder players here. Richarlison, Hazard and Felipe Anderson. All three, I'm hoping they can score big. Richarlison, I probably have to keep in the team now, certainly with the double game weeks. Huddersfield away, he's got to be scoring points in that game. Otherwise, it'll be 5 blanks in a row. Similarly with Felipe Anderson, could be his last week in my team. Wolves away, again, Wolves not great defensively, so I could see points here. West Ham will want to bounce back from disappointing FA Cup loss to the mighty Wimbledon, and so otherwise it'll be 5 blanks from him. I'm hoping he can leave my team if I do transfer him out on a high. And then Hazard, expecting big things from him. Loves playing against Bournemouth. Again, Bournemouth not great defensively. They're pretty good attacking, but that will mean that they'll come out and play against Chelsea, which will hopefully leave a lot of space in and around their defence. And with Higuain now, we'll see that combination of Hazard and Higuain. So fingers crossed, there could be a big haul there for Hazard. It'd be very interesting to see those two link up. And then my one man up front, Rashford, been in great form, had a bit of a rest from the FA Cup match, so he'll be raring to go, and I expect big things from him also. With my bench, Ings first sub, Bednarek's second sub, both Southampton. Crystal Palace at home, decent first, second sub there, especially with Ings. So if Lonzo gets dropped or any surprise benchings, I'm pretty happy with that first sub. Also to mention, I have Kamara from Fulham, who's my third option on the bench. I think he could well be in jail in the next few weeks. He's been arrested for GBH, so I can't see him getting another game for Fulham this season. He'll probably be out of the club soon, and so I'll have to try and rectify that, but he'll be third on my bench until I wildcard, so not looking at doing anything with him at this stage. And so that's how my squad is shaping up for game week 24. Again, looking for that 60-point game week average would be nice, but hoping for big things from a few of these players. A lot of managers have got rid of Felipe Anderson and Richarlison and Alonso, so if all three play and do big, could definitely get some differential points there, I think. And just to mention a couple of other games. I don't have any Arsenal players, but they're home to Cardiff. So if you've got Aubameyang, great option there. If you could captain him, of course, depends whether you have Salah or not. But I expect Arsenal to do well. I expect him to do well in that match. City away to Newcastle. I'd like a City player in this match, but with the game week 25 double coming, I could have brought in maybe Sane first, but I would have, if I was going to do that this week, I'd have to take a hit or bring him in instead of Hazard, and I just don't think that makes any sense at all. So, but I would have thought City would do well against Newcastle. It'd be interesting to see who plays in that match. I'm hoping for Sane to be rested or on the bench. And I think that means that he's got the potential of playing both games in that game week double in 25. And Spurs at home to Watford. Obviously had Kane in my team for this great run of fixtures they had, but then everyone's injured for Spurs. Son has just come back from the Asia Cup. Whether he'll play in that game or not, I don't know. So just so hard to call that game. If you got Spurs assets, and if they're injured, obviously ship out. If you've got Son still, obviously just hold on to him. Eriksen's good option, but again, who's he going to pass to? And I just don't think Llorente is an option whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that could well be an upset in that game. Watford are a bit up and down, but have had some decent form. And so I could potentially see that being a draw there. I think Watford would be really happy with a draw. But if Son does start, then it would start to put Spurs back into a possible winning mentality there, I would say. So that's game week 24. And I think that's where I'm going to land the show. A reminder that game week 24 deadline is Tuesday, so that's tomorrow, 6:45 p.m. That's Tuesday, tomorrow, 6:45 p.m. So for more info on anything else featured on the show, check out the podcast Twitter account at Captain's Pick Pod. Feel free to send in any questions or topics you'd like discussed on the show. Again, shout out to the half-season community league. All the details in the podcast description and on my Twitter bio. And so, thanks so much for listening to this in-flight podcast. I have been your captain. Good luck with game week 24. And until next time, it's been my pleasure to talk with you.
Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast.